It seems like this year could be the beginning of the end for the Democratic Party. Right now, they are scrambling to find a new leader, but the people stepping forward to take that role are showing just how much trouble the party is in. One of their most well-known members, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, AOC, who often talks about fighting against the rich and powerful, was recently seen flying first class to a rally. For someone who speaks so strongly about equality and the environment, this felt like clear hypocrisy. Many politicians, especially wealthy ones, say they care about everyday people and the planet, but then live in million-dollar homes across the country and travel in private jets. They say one thing and do another. This is a common problem in politics. Pretend to care in public, then behave differently in private. Another rising star in the Democratic Party, Jasmine Crockett, recently made headlines for comments she made about immigrants and farming. She told people that America is a nation of immigrants and asked if anyone wanted to go work on a farm. She implied that no Americans are willing to do farm work anymore. But in reality, there are millions of American farmers who are citizens, and they use modern equipment. Not like in the 1800s where people picked crops by hand. Crockett then made another remark, saying, "We're done picking cotton," and that no one could pay them enough to work on a plantation. These comments sparked controversy and brought her even more attention, though not in a positive way. The Democrats have been struggling in recent years. They've lost confidence, and many believe they've lost touch with the people they claim to represent. If Crockett is meant to be one of their future stars, critics say it's a sign the party is in serious trouble. Alongside AOC, she seems to represent a Democratic Party that critics call delusional, and obsessed with attacking Donald Trump or using race-related arguments instead of presenting real solutions. Some people, especially in cities like Chicago, are already unhappy with how illegal immigration has affected their communities. If politicians like Crockett tried to defend illegal immigration in those neighborhoods, many residents would strongly disagree. Meanwhile, political commentator Bill Maher recently said that Democrats need a leader with strength, what he called an alpha, and someone authentic. He explained that voters can easily spot when a politician is fake, which is why leaders like Kamala Harris have struggled. This lack of authenticity could also hurt figures like Gavin Newsom if he runs for president, as he has a history of saying one thing and doing another, such as his well-known French Laundry incident and his stance on transgender women in women's sports. Right now, Democrats not only need a strong leader but also a clear message. At recent rallies, their focus was mainly on hating Donald Trump, Elon Musk, and others. That tells people what they are against, but not what they are for. Gretchen Whitmer tried a different approach by agreeing with part of Donald Trump's policy on tariffs, saying America needs to make more products, cars, chips, steel, and ships, right here at home, and that trade should be fair. But overall, the party seems lost. Critics say that just like in the 1800s, when the Democratic Party supported slavery and relied on others to pick cotton, the same question exists today. Who will do the work? But in a new form. Those who vote for Democrats, they argue, are ignoring the long-term future of their families, communities, and even the planet. Meanwhile, Elon Musk has been pointing out how taxpayer money is being wasted on things that don't seem to benefit Americans at all. He revealed millions of dollars spent on projects like teaching journalists in Sri Lanka to avoid gendered language, funding LGBT programs in Armenia, rebuilding media systems in Cuba, supporting the BBC's work in Libya, and promoting equity and inclusion programs in Nepal. These are examples of money being spent overseas while many problems at home are left unaddressed. Critics argue that more people should care about how this money is being used and wasted, but instead, much of the outrage is aimed only at political opponents like Trump or Musk. Mr. President, I'm used to being disappointed by what I see in Washington, but during the last administration, I was disappointed almost every single day. I had nearly grown accustomed to it. Still, what I read last week shocked me so much that it made me feel sick. In April 2024, the Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, under President Biden gave $2 billion in taxpayer money to an organization with no experience in the area it was funded for. This group happened to be backed by a prominent Democrat, Stacey Abrams. Now, Elon Musk and Donald Trump don't have to be doing the work they're doing. They could easily be relaxing on a beach somewhere, living a comfortable life. But they've chosen to focus on government waste and financial accountability because they say they care about regular people like you and me. The problem is that some Americans dismiss their efforts simply because they don't like who is doing the job, and that attitude ends up hurting the country. To understand how this happened, we have to look at the Inflation Reduction Act, passed in 2022. President Biden and the Democrats pushed it through without a single Republican vote. The bill cost $1.2 trillion, and many critics said it would make inflation worse rather than better. Even Biden later admitted it didn't actually lower prices. So, where did all that money go? When Trump returned to office, his team, along with the new EPA leadership under Lee Zeldin, started tracking the spending. That's when Stacey Abrams entered the picture. Abrams is well known for running twice for governor of Georgia and losing both times. She has made several controversial statements over the years. For example, in April 2024, she said that attacks on diversity, equity, and inclusion programs were attacks on democracy. In 2022, she described a fetal heartbeat as a manufactured sound, meant to convince people that men could control women's bodies. She also called Georgia the worst state in the country to live in, and accused Georgia sheriffs who supported her opponent of wanting to take black people off the streets. In another statement, she linked abortion to inflation, saying that having children is the reason people are concerned about gas prices and food costs. While Abrams has the right to free speech, many people see her as extremely controversial, and critics also believe she is deeply corrupt. Some say she is as bad as, or even worse than, politicians like Nancy Pelosi and Adam Schiff, accusing her of seeking ways to take taxpayer money through questionable means. The larger point is that many top Democratic figures seem to have troubling histories and questionable methods of making money. Critics argue that their actions need to be investigated more closely. It's reminiscent of how, during the pandemic, people wanted to investigate China's role and study its economy. Now, China itself is struggling, with a slowing economy, empty cities, young people not working, and serious housing issues. Similarly, in the US, wasteful spending and lack of accountability are creating their own set of problems, and leaders like Trump and Musk say they're determined to expose where taxpayer money is really going. China's economy depends heavily on exports. If they can't sell their goods abroad, they can act tough all they want, but eventually, their economy will start to collapse. Trump understands this, and he's putting pressure on them quickly. Many people want to turn this into a political battle between left and right, Democrats and Republicans, but this move is more about Trump showing leadership and strength. By placing tariffs on China, he's asserting dominance, almost like collecting rent. While other politicians are playing checkers, Trump is playing chess. Biden could have taken similar action when he was president, especially since the world was united in anger toward China after the COVID-19 pandemic. Millions of people died, and China was never held responsible. They even sent fake PPE and faulty testing kits to other countries while pretending to provide humanitarian aid. But instead of taking a stand, Biden did little to address it. Now, with this trade war, Trump has leverage because he's managed to isolate China. The world can choose between buying cheap Chinese products, many of which are low quality and break easily, or working with countries that offer better, more reliable goods. This problem goes beyond just the US. China has invested in infrastructure projects in places like Africa, promising to build bridges and roads, but often the work is done by imported Chinese labor, and the projects quickly fall apart. Even then, China demands repayment, leaving countries trapped in debt. Trump sees this as more than a short-term fight. It's part of a larger economic strategy that includes tax cuts, deregulation, and spending reductions. While tariffs might cause some short-term discomfort, he believes they are necessary for the long-term health of the US economy. Meanwhile, China operates with a 100-year plan, focusing on slowly gaining influence and control through trade and investment. But with their history of stealing $600 billion worth of American intellectual property, their credibility is already in question. Trump approaches the situation like a business deal. Unlike past presidents who focused on being liked internationally, Trump prioritizes the future strength of the United States. Critics may disagree with his style, but it's hard to deny that he's directly confronting an economic threat that others have ignored. China has even tried to pressure the US by targeting industries like Hollywood, but Trump treats that as just the opening move in negotiations. Some believe China's real aim is to hurt small American businesses that rely on cheap imports. This could create backlash from store owners, big retailers like Walmart, and even Trump's own supporters in the business world. Still, Trump seems willing to take the heat if it means protecting America's long-term interests. Right now, some experts believe the US has shifted from being a global stabilizer to becoming a global destabilizer. Many think we are either already in a recession or headed toward one. This isn't the result of a pandemic or a global financial crisis. It's something we have created ourselves. The problem, according to some, is that Trump's trade moves are based more on his personal vision and confidence than on traditional economic thinking. The value of the US dollar is dropping, foreign investors are pulling out of American assets, and many believe the US is becoming a less attractive place to invest. Consumer confidence has fallen to its second lowest level since records began in 1952, which means regular Americans, especially those in lower income brackets,